Hi, this is Greg Koopman. Welcome to my JetBrains Datagrip Simple Tips for the Database User Part 2. If you haven't watched Part 1, it's not completely necessary you watch it first, but it probably would be best if you watch that first. Okay, let's get right into it. Basically, we have, this is our to-do list for this video. And I'm going to read them through, and I'll try to go a little quickly here. Number one, we're going to look at the results pane compare icon. Yeah, for basically, for those of you that did not watch the first video, basically, I'm going through some simple tips that make working with Datagrip a lot easier. They're not so intuitive. It took me a while before I found it. Some other people pointed them out to me, and I discovered them different ways. So I'm just sharing with you those tips. I don't find Datagrip all that intuitive, but I do find it very powerful. I think if you learn some of these tips, you'll find that it might be a real excellent tool for you to use with your databases. Okay, in this video, we're going to go over number one, results pane, compare icon. Number two, highlight and drag from column list into select statement. Show all DDL for schemas, for all different kinds of schemas and objects. Limit rows on a view, because the default's about 500, and sometimes you want to see a lot more than that. Refresh icon refreshes without going back to find the query, so that also is very beneficial. Alt+vertical mouse drag for vertical end of lines. Ctl-shift-v for multi-clipboards for paste. Result pane, where you can, when the results, you have many tabs for your results, you can use these hotkeys to get go from one to the other. Increase font on the main screen and result pane with your control mouse roller. Sometimes that doesn't work, and you have to go in and make a setting in the settings option to enable your mouse control of moving your mouse to increase the font. Increase font on output pane result, control mouse roller. Visualization, where you can see the diagram of your tables and their foreign key relationships. Using a comment, where you can do inline commenting, and the hotkey for that. Compare results in the console result tabs, side by side, which is also very beneficial if you're trying to compare results numbers. And 15 problems with syncing, or problems with what we would call refreshing when an object structure changes. For example, let's say you delete a table. When it refreshes, that table will no longer be there. And in Datagrip, sometimes it takes a while before these things refresh, and it becomes a problem sometimes. So this is one of the main problems in Datagrip, outside of so many benefits. But I'm going to give you 5 different ways to approach this problem if you're having this problem. So if you're not having that problem, you might not have to look at that last part of the video. But if you are having problems with the syncing, or you want to understand more about the refreshing of your DDL structures, then you probably want to look at that. Okay, and so let's go ahead and start with the first one. Results pane compare icon. So here we are in our Datagrip, and we have 2 different tabs open. One for Redshift, and again, a lot of this stuff I'm going to take for granted that you watched the first video, so you know what I'm talking about here. But basically I have 2 sources open, 2 connections that are working right now. One is Redshift and one is for SQL Server. And basically I have 2 consoles open. This one is looking at the SQL Server, and this one is looking at the Redshift. Okay, now in this scenario I have 2 tables that I have for Redshift, which is the employee and the data lake person, and the person table. And we can see that here by coming down to our result pane. I'll bring this up a little bit higher. Do that. So here's my result pane for Redshift, and here's the two result sets within Redshift. Okay, when I press on SQL Server, now I'm back over SQL Server, and now I see that I have one tab open for them. Okay, now I have a table in Redshift called person, and I have a table in SQL Server called person also with the same structure. So what I want to do is compare these two data and see if they both have exactly the same data in the same rows, or if there's a difference. And the way you do that is by clicking this compare data icon, compare with. So what I'm going to do, I'm in Redshift, and I have 4 columns, and I'm going to hit that compare that, and what it's going to do is show me all the different tabs and all the different connections that are open. Okay, that are currently have results in them. So as I see test, which reflects this my SQL Server, and then I have a data lake employee, which is right next to me here on my Redshift. So I want to compare it with the test over on SQL Server. So again, I'm comparing the test from SQL Server's person table against the Redshift persons table. Okay, all right, so I click here, and now as you see, it comes up in this nice screen here. So on this side, you can see that the dev data lake person, which is coming from my Redshift, is on my left, and I'm comparing it to the SQL Server that's on my right here. So as I see, there's 5 rows here, and there's 4 rows here, and the green rows are the ones that don't match. So the green rows on this side don't match all the rows on this side. So you have my here, which doesn't even exist in this on the Redshift table, and Matthew, which corresponds to the Marvin, but the name is different. So Matthew's name is different than Marvin. So that's what this tool that's what that button does. It lets you compare 2 tables, even if they're in different sources, which comes in very handy. Okay, the next topic is highlight and drag column list in select statement. Okay, so what we talked about in our first video was how you'd have to do select asterisk like that, and then locate to show all the columns. You'd have to show an expand column list. Okay, and that's the only way I could see how to do that, right? And see how I just did that and put it in. But after the video, I showed the video to some of my colleagues. I was told by one of them that there's another way you can do this, or actually by 2 of them. And there's another way you can easily do this. So let's just go to SQL Server to make this a little simpler. And I'm just going to go to AdventureWorks to make this a little bit more visual. So internet sales, I'm going to put that on over here. So I'm just going to say select asterisk, or I'm just going to say select from VBO, and that's going to let me choose which one I'm going to do. I'm going to do AdventureWorks. I want to say fact internet. Having to do the asterisk there, then using that technique I showed in the first video, I can come down into fact internet sales here and actually just hold my shift key down, highlight whatever I want, and bring it into the window like that. Okay, so if I do that though, it doesn't give me the commas, okay, whereas the other one does. But there's another technique you can use to get the commas. Now let's say you want the commas at the end of every row here, okay, or let's say we want it at the beginning of every row. So again, from the last video, you remember that I just carry I just place my cursor where I want to here, like so, and I just drag down a vertical line. Then I can just put a comma in like that, and now I have all my commas. And in fact, if I wanted to, I could redo that. Instead of doing a comma, I could do a tab comma. Okay, and there I go. I have a little bit of an indentation there. So, okay, so that's That's another way you can do it. What's nice about this, see, I did SQL Server Management Studio, and I couldn't do that. You couldn't do a lot of these things in SQL Management Studio. And by working in SQL Server Management Studio for 20 years, you know, you're conditioned not to even try it after a while. So when you get into Datagrip, there's a lot of things that some guys try because they haven't been conditioned in other tools not to try it, right? So myself, I was conditioned not to try it, so I never tried this. And it was, you know, fairly intuitive for some people. But for me, it was, you know, it was one of those things I blocked out that I would never try. And I didn't think of it. So, anyways, that's how that works. But what's nice also about this is that you can hold your control key down, of course, and just choose specific ones you want to drag over, right? So now you can just get very specific on which ones you want to use. Okay, that's also a nice feature. So that's a pretty cool feature. Okay, let's go on to the next topic. Okay, show all DDL for schema. Okay, so what this was in my first video, I mentioned that when you select, again, this is one of those conditioning things where I wasn't conditioned to do it another way. So basically, if I want to, what I told you in the first video was that there's only one way, one object that you could go ahead and create a DDL for. So create DDL into console for employee, and yes, I got the employee. I also said that there was no way you could do multiple ones. Actually, I was given a comment on my last video when I asked the audience to give me any comments, you know, anything that they saw was wrong or could be improved, to let me know, and he let me know about this one, and I'm very appreciative of it, and that still holds true with everything I say here. Whatever, if you see a better way of doing it, please leave your comment, you know, leave me a comment, and we'll, you know, if I get another video, I'll try to put in that. If not, at least we're sharing it with anyone who's looking at those comments. Okay, so anyways, now, so in this case, if I wanted to go into and do multiple tables, all you do again is hit the Shift key down, right click, SQL Server, generate DDL to console, and there we go. We get all of them. Okay. If I go up higher and I do the whole database like so, I can say SQL scripts, DDL, and I get all my objects. Okay. So it's almost embarrassing to show how easy that is. Okay, but it is true. That's how it is. One thing I did notice though was that at some point I wanted to see how it did with some of the these procedures and how it coded those. So I did this full schema, the full database, and I did all the schemas. And when I went and I looked for procedure, right, I saw different procedures here, right? Now this procedure is full. This procedure is full too. Okay. These all look good. I had done it in an earlier one. It looked like some system, although these also look like could be system procedures because they're SP, but I'm not sure. It could be the way the person who created this, just his naming convention. But I had seen in another area of the script, maybe it's up here, where it didn't show it didn't have the full body of the procedure. Maybe that was in Redshift, or maybe that was here. But make sure your procedures, before you go redoing them, you want to review this and read it through a little bit before you actually execute this, because I did see where some of the store procedures, I think they were the system store procedures, were not showing all the code. So be careful of that. But anyways, that was a good tip that someone had given me in the comments. So let's move on to the next one, which is number 4. Okay, limited rows on view, settings, data views, limit page size. Okay, so let's say I'm in SQL Server, and I'm going to go to Data Warehouse. There should be a lot of rows inside one of these tables, especially the fact tables. So let's say select master from say internet sales. Right. So let's just run that. Let's see how many rows we get. So as you see, when we look down at the bottom here, we have 500 rows that this goes down to. All right. It only presents 500. Then you have to hit the next button. And then it will go, 501 to 1,000, etc., etc. And if I hit the last page, it goes all the way to what, 60,398. Okay. Now let's say, for example, I want to see all 60,398 for some reason. I mean, you don't want to go too high; you might run out of memory. But we could go, we could say 100,000. We could change this to 100,000. So what you do is you go to File, Settings, Data Views, Data Views, and then see where it says Limit Page to 500. We can limit the page to 100,000. Okay, and now I'm changing my limit. So now when I run this, I won't get the little scroll thing here. It will just show me all 100,000 or 63,000 or whatever it is. Okay, so let's execute that. And it comes back very quickly. Of course, I have quite a bit of memory on my machine. There's no problem. If you look at the very bottom one, we have 60,398. Okay, so that's how you can change it. So now every time I run a query, it will give me, so as long as it doesn't go over 100,000, it will show them all to me here. If it goes over 100,000, it will show me 100,000 at a time. All right, just by changing that setting. Okay, let's go to the next one. Refresh icon refreshes without going back to the original query. Okay, all this does is, let's say you're testing, and let's say something's happening every couple minutes or whatever. Your data's changing just as you're viewing it. So you view it, and you come back and view it again. Maybe you view it 6 hours later. You come back, it's still sitting in your screen, and you want to view it again, but you've already been working on a lot of other things, and the query, you don't even know where the query is, but your result set's there, right? So you come to your result set, and all you have to do is hit this button here, Reload Page, and it will run this query. So if I view the query, so that query is select asterisk from fact internet sales. So here's where you view the query. But if you want to just run it without having to go find it up here in your different consoles, let's say you might have 10, 20 consoles open. It's hard to find, but you just got to freshen up that data. So you just click here, it reruns it as you see the querying occurs. So it goes out and finds the query, it reruns it, and then it gives you the most recent data. Okay, so that's what that icon does. Okay. Now, I showed you how to use the alt mouse, right? So let's just where we did the vertical, and then we were able to type in just a couple characters, and it did it for everything, right? Well, you don't only do that on one; you can do that on the right side of your data also. So let's just go ahead and try that here. So I'm going to go ahead and say from AdventureWorks, Internet Sales, like before. Internet sales. Right. So I come in here, and I'm going to give myself a little more real estate here. And I'm going to put in all these columns, right? And let's say, for example, for some reason, I have to have the comma at the end. Or I have to have it at the end of each one of these. Or let's say I want to say something else at the end of each one of these. But let's just say comma for right now. So what you can do here is just go to the, here's the longest one, right? We can visually see that. I can come over to beyond that, just click anywhere and hold the Alt key down, and just go ahead and just drag. And look how it's putting at the very end of each one a cursor. All right. So actually, I would start probably on this one here, because this one, actually I do start on that one. I just don't do the last one. So what I do is I hold my Alt key down. I stay far to the right. I just go down, 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 and not the last one, because the last one will give me an error. So then I just hit the comma, and there it is. It's all done. I got all the commas on the side. So this is kind of a cool way to get the right side, a ragged, where it's ragged on the right side. You can still get the very last, the next character on the line, even if it's all ragged. Okay, again, that's Alt. You press the Alt key down, and you just drag that mouse down, and it puts that cursor where you want. And then if you wanted to, you could type in, la, 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 right? You could do anything you want. All right, so that's another cool tip. Okay, now this comes in handy also when you're doing a lot of edits and everything else. Now I've been working on this on here for a little while today, and I have been doing a lot of copy paste, right? So what it does when you go to paste, if you do a Control V paste, right, whatever your last thing was. And my last one that I used was Control V was Results Pane Compare Icon, right? When I was getting my notes together for this video. But if I do instead of Control V, Ctl-shift-v, it shows me my last 5 copies that I copied to the clipboard. So I have my results pane, I got my test DBO, insert data lake person, auto generate. Okay, so let's say I say this one, data lake from data, this whole area, right? So this whole thing, I'm just going to paste that. All right, so I'm just going to paste it, and see, it just showed up right down there, right from here. Select from there, right? And let's say I want to paste again, Control V. So whatever I chose there, I can continue pasting. If I don't like that, I want to go back to a different one, I can go to test DBO or something. Right now I got test DBO is what I can do with when I do Control V. Okay, so this is a multi-clipboard. So Ctl-shift-v, and you get multiples. Pretty cool. All right, now results pane. Now when you do results, right? Let me get rid of some of this stuff. Okay, as I explained to everybody in the last video, I want to do. Let me do a little editing here real quick.
Wow, Greg, you're a fast typer.
Thanks, Sandra. I do my best. Okay, so we have all these queries here. I'm gonna go ahead and run them. And as you see, it generates all these result sets, right? And in fact, so many that are even off the screen, I have to click here to see the additional ones. I guess there's only one additional one, but it's a lot, right? So I could go here and click. Sometimes you might have 30 of these. You might have so many, they're so far off the screen, there's no way you can visually, you have to come back and click here. There might be a long list. So to move from tab to tab down here, all you need to do is say Alt, right arrow, and it just moves you from tab to tab. You see how it's going up at the top there? And it just keeps cycling through. Okay, so that's a good hotkey to know. You can also go to the left. So now I'm going to the left. Alt, right key, Alt, left key. Okay, maneuvers you through the results. Result tabs. If you only have a couple tabs, it doesn't matter. But if you have 20 and you're studying the data as you go through them, it's probably easier just to use your Alt arrow keys. Okay. Number 9. Increase font on the main query screen and the result pane by using your controller. Okay, what I mean by that is that if I press my control key down, this happens in Word and so many other applications, and I'm rolling my mouse up. But notice that it's not changing my font size. Okay, and I have bad eyes. I gotta have a big font sometimes, especially if I'm not wearing my glasses. Okay, so there's a setting for this. So you go up to File, Settings, Editor, font. Okay. Sorry, it's not font, it's general. And what you need to do is check this box that says change font size zoom with control mouse wheel. So when you click that, then hit apply and say okay. Now I'm going to roll it with press my control key down and roll my mouse up, and notice my font gets bigger. Roll it down and it gets very small. Alright, so that's what that tip is all about. Comes in very handy, especially when you know bad eyes like me. Okay, the next one is on the list is the result set. So the same thing goes true with the result set. So I'm going to go ahead and run that query. And so here it is. And I'm looking over someone's shoulder. They're showing me this on the result set. And I'm showing them numbers. They can't see a thing. I can't see a thing. So what do? We put our cursor into the result set. And we press the control button down and start rolling up on that mouse roller until we can see that data. Okay, can you see it yet? Yeah, I bet you can see it there. All right, then bring it down a little lower. Oh, too low. Okay, a little fun. All right, let's see. Next, we went over the settings. We went over the output pane, visualization. Right click on a table and go to diagrams. Okay, this is kind of good. I do like SQL servers better, but I might not know this tool well enough, but I have seen this in this tool, so I'm going to show it to you. So let's say I go, now, if you don't have foreign keys on your tables, you're not going to see too much in this pane. But this particular database in SQL Server has a bunch of foreign keys, so it has relationships. So when I'll right click on the table and I say diagrams at the bottom here, show visualizations. Pow! We got everything that's related to the fact internet sales reasons. Now, again, you have your mouse. I'm doing the control roller, right? So I can increase the size. Unfortunately, I don't have like the hand thing that lets you kind of move the whole thing, the whole frame around. So I have to use these zooms. Okay, I'm not the zooms. I'm sorry, the scroll bars, which I really don't like too much. So once you find out where you're trying to get to, so I'm taking it that this is probably the table down here. In fact, internet sales sure is. It is very handy. You know, it doesn't, it shows your primary key. That's pretty cool. And it shows you your data types, which helps. It also shows you what foreign key relationship is going on between the two tables here. So yeah, it's pretty darn helpful. It has some print capabilities up here. Here's some more zoom stuff if you don't want to use your mouse roller. Not bad. It's a nice little feature. Can come in handy. Can be useful. Okay, now let's go to our next one. Use of commenting like shift. Okay, what this is doing with the comments. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this guy. So let's say, for example, I don't have a good one right here to show you, but basically, sometimes you have a lot of code. You have a where, you have something like, all right, so let's say it's in, I don't even know what culture names are right here. Let's see what the data looks like. Real quick, grab a few culture names. Culture name, okay, we got Bulgarian, we got Farsi, we got Hindi. Let's use Hindi. So it could be a Hindi, dash Hindi, comma, dash Greek. All right. And we could also have dash finish. Right? So what I'm trying to show you here is the dash fit even though we have that inline comment there, this will run with the finish. So let's go ahead and run that. Let's get this up a little higher. So let's run that. And sure enough, here's all our finish, right? Finish people. Okay. If I want to change it around, I can just go like this. Control-Shift to do the inline code. Control-Shift to untoggle it, or to toggle it again. Okay, now I'm going to get Hindi and Greek. There it is, Hindi and Greek. Right? There's your Unicode. Wow. It's easy to read. Okay, for some of you. All right, so anyways, that's how the inline commenting works, and I like it. Okay, we talked about compare results between two data sets. Now I'm going to talk about comparing results within a data set. Okay, so for example, this isn't going to look really great or nothing. Okay, so we're going to run a couple of these together. So I have a customer, and I have a dim customer too. Now I have a customer, which I'm going to pin. And then I'm going to do dim account. I'm going to put that there, right? So dim account, I'm going to keep my pinned one here. I'm going to pull this one over. So now you see I have my dim account and my dim customer, because I brought my dim account over with my dim customer. Okay, I'm going to get rid of my dim account. So I just have dim customer. I'm going to bring in my dim account. I'm going to sit on dim customer. I'm going to take my dim account into my dim customer. Okay, so then it breaks it apart on both sides. Okay, let's do that one last time. So I have my dim customer. I'm going to pin it. I have my dim account. I'm going to put that there. Now I'm going to pull my dim account so that it goes right next to dim customer. Okay, so I'm just going to push it in here. In fact, I'm going to push it over this way. I'll push it here, and dim customer is going to jump over to the right side. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, and that's how you work that side by side. Okay, my last section is going to be on problem syncing or refreshing object structures. Okay, so there's 5 tips I want to give you on refreshing your schemas, your syncing, whatever you want to call this thing. They kind of call it synchronizing, I think, over in Datagrip. It's kind of like a refresh of your DDL. Now, your data doesn't change. If you run a query, you should be at exactly the data you're asking for, unless it's stored in some transaction. That's another story. But generally, you should have no problem getting your data in a timely fashion immediately after you insert it, update it, or delete it. It should respond to your queries exactly as it should. Okay, that has nothing to do with this refresh or synchronizing type thing. What this has to do is with, let's say, schemas or objects. So let's say I come into AdventureWorks here and I delete the database log, which I'm not going to do right now, but I could. I could delete it. But sometimes what happens is that even when you delete these objects, they don't go away. Internally, yes, they are deleted. But externally in this Datagrip, on your presentation screen here, they're still there until it refreshes. The system has to refresh. And if you don't have that many objects or databases or data sources or whatever, it might not take that long to refresh. It might refresh really quickly. But it also has to do with your settings. Okay, so if you want to force a refresh, what you should do is click on the object and say synchronize. So for example, let's say someone goes in here and you say, oh, the name database user spelt wrong. So you go to your DBA and you call him up and he says, okay, I just changed it from database user to database name, okay, and or username. So now, so you go back in and you say, oh, it's still database user. He just told me that he changed it, and you believe him, and he did. Okay, so what you do is you go synchronize, and you hit synchronize, but it's still the same. Okay, this is what is kind of problematic with Datagrip sometimes. Okay, so one way you can do it is just do the synchronize, like I just did, and hopefully that repairs it. Another way you can do this is go to database tools, okay, and go in and, well, on this one it doesn't show it, but, okay, if you go on the database itself or the server, you go on the server and you go to database tools, you have something that says forget cache schemas. So possibly it's keeping everything in cache and the cache hasn't refreshed itself yet, meaning that you're not able to, so it's not showing the latest changes. Okay, so that's another thing you can try, see if that works. All right. One that wasn't mentioned on my list there was if all else fails, you can go against this. You can query the system tables, and that's a real pain in the butt. And you have to know your system, some system tables. But if you really get in a stretch, and I've done this before, I will query the, to see, why my tables weren't deleting, because I was deleting these tables from my schema, and but they weren't being removed from my visual. So I ended up going into the system tables for that database and looked at those to make sure that, and it would just show the tables that were really part of that schema, and that I could trust for sure. So, and generally, I think once you get it set up and it's working for you and it's refreshing right, you probably won't have any problems. But sometimes some people have problems. I had problems earlier, but I don't have them as much anymore. So that's another way you can go about it, and that wasn't on my list, but I didn't want to forget to tell you that, so I told you that now. Okay, so the third thing on our list on this thing, and this has to do with, yeah, it definitely has to do with refresh. So if I go into my connection and I go into properties, right, in my properties under options, I have a few different items. Actually, under general, let's look over here at auto sync, right? There's an auto sync, and this is supposed to automatically every so often refresh your schema. Okay, so you don't have to manually do it. Okay, so you might want to have that checked. But I've read it also in some threads where the auto sync, with all these people using the database and all this auto syncing going on, it was slowing them down, because every time they made a change, it would try to repopulate, reevaluate the entire schema for all the databases, and it just took, it kind of slowed down their computer, their processes started slowing down. So this auto sync is a good thing, and it also can be a bad thing, but you need to be aware of it, and you need to know what it's set to, okay, so you can understand what your refreshes are doing. Okay, a third thing that you want to do is come into options here on the connection, and there's this called notify when outdated object is open. Okay, so this would, the way I read it, this will go ahead when I have an object that's out of date. Okay, it's going to notify me. Okay, and that's what I want that to happen. So if I'm about ready to change a file that my database person just changed, and we're all kind of stepping on each other's toes, I want to know about it. So that's what that's good for. And that might also help me, like if I went ahead and tried to delete the same object twice, it would tell me that probably that the second time it's not going to work. I'm assuming that. I have not tested that yet. And the last thing you could do is this introspection using JDBC metadata. Sometimes your introspection is set, your driver is set to something that it doesn't quite refresh the way you'd expect it to. And also, so if you want to know more about these commands, those two commands, or actually, and the ACE and the other one I just mentioned, this auto sync, you should go to this web page and actually, let's put it in here. One second. Okay, I have a snapshot of it here, and what you'll see, and here's a page right up here, www.jetbrains. This is the latest. This is not the. This is the latest, I think, documentation as of this viewing. You can also go down to the question mark here and see some of this. I didn't see all of it there. I saw it all online, which was a later version, I think, of the documentation, a more recent version rather. So I'm going to not show you this piece, but you can find it here under Options tab, and you can come in here and you can find some of it under Options tab, but not all of it. So there were a couple things missing. So this is a screen I pulled up for 2019.1 help, and you can see it explains the auto sync and what it exactly does, and it also shows the warn on editing and outdated DDL, and it shows the explanation for that. I'm not going to read it to you. You can look it up if you want more specifics on it. And this is the other one, the introspect using JDBC metadata. Okay, and that one you want to, it explains it here too, that maybe you have to change the driver to get a better refresh, to get it to refresh exactly the way it should. Okay, so those are different ways you can go about solving a refresh or synchronization problems. And that will conclude my video. And I hope if you have any comments where maybe I said something that is incorrect, please correct me. If you see something that has a better way of doing it, please comment, or just comment and on some of your opinions on Datagrip and its functionality. Okay, well, thanks a lot for watching, and have a nice rest of your day.